Our topic, make debt collectors pay you. Turn the tables on debt collectors. Now, I'm sure that sounds like an oxymoron, just words that just don't belong together. But there are three consumer laws, and we're going to show you how it pertains to debt collection, why charge-offs turn to collections, how to handle debt collection calls, being sued by a debt collector, a judgment from a collection activity, your private right of action, which is how you get paid, and our solutions. First, a disclaimer. Legal information is not the same as legal advice. ProDebt Solutions, its agents, its representatives, and members never provide legal advice, and ProDebt Solutions, its agents, representatives are not legal representatives for the members, nor are we practicing attorneys. What you will hear is entertainment and educational in nature and is for information purposes only. This information is provided to help users safely cope with their own legal needs. Content, forms, and templates from ProDebt Solutions, its agents, or representatives does not constitute legal advice, and no attorney-client relationship is created. Consult an attorney before using content or commencing in any legal action. This information is to be used at your own risk. We are not bar licensed attorneys who are officers of the court. ProDebt Solutions, its agents, or representatives, and members never give legal advice. All right, the three consumer laws that we're going to cover is, first of all, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Congress enacted the Telephone Consumer Protection Act in 1991. The TCPA restricts the making of telemarketing calls and the use of automatic telephone dialing systems, better known as ATDS, and artificial or pre-recorded voice messages. The rules apply to common carriers as well as to other marketers and debt collectors. The Act applies to home phones as well as cell phones, but cell phones carry more weight. Now, breaking that down, okay, as far as home phones, in order to for it to be a violation, they would have to leave an artificial or pre-recorded voice message on your voicemail. Okay, it has to be a message left. Whereas with the cell phone, as long as they make the call, okay, the violation falls in line. Okay, so they don't have to leave an artificial or pre-recorded message on your voicemail, but as long as you can prove the call, okay, the call can be proved with screenshots. It can be proved with copies of your bill, or maybe even an app that keeps a detailed call log. Now, most recently in 2012, the FCC revised three of its TCPA rules to require telemarketers and debt collectors, and the most important one was that they have to obtain prior express written consent from consumers before auto dialing them. Okay, now think about it. No debt collector has ever, in the history of the world, sent someone a notice and asked for prior written consent to give them a call pertaining to a debt. Just one day you get a phone call from a debt collector, or you happen to see some activity on your credit report, or maybe you get a letter in the mail, and that is the beginning of the process. Okay. Now, on October 16, 2013, two changes went into effect in the rules implementing the Federal Telephone Consumer Protection Act. Importantly, these rules impose stricter requirements on mobile messaging and pre-recorded telephone calls. Also applies to debt collection calls. Now, the rules change announced back in February 2012 may spur further litigation concerning the scope of the TCPA. Now, under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, it's codified as 15 USC 1692 to 1692P, approved on September 20th, 1977. It's a consumer protection amendment establishing legal protection from abusive debt collection practices to the Consumer Credit Protection Act as Title 8 of that act. The statute's stated purposes are to eliminate abusive practices in the collection of consumer debts, to promote fair debt collection, and to provide consumers with an avenue for disputing and obtaining validation of debt information in order to ensure the information's accuracy. The Act creates guidelines under which debt collectors may conduct business, defines rights of consumers involved with debt collectors, and prescribes penalties and remedies for violations of the Act. It is sometimes used in conjunction with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. All right, now, underneath the Fair Credit Reporting Act, it's United States federal law, and it's codified under Title 15, Section 1681, that regulates the collection, the dissemination, and use of consumer information, including consumer credit information. Along with the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, it forms the base of consumer credit rights in the United States. It was originally passed in 1970 and is enforced by the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, which we better know it as the FTC, and private litigants. This act pertains to the consumer or credit reporting agencies, better known as Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And you may not be aware of a fourth agency by the name of Innovis. Nationwide specialty consumer reporting agencies, such as medical records or payments. One company is called the Medical Information Bureau. Criminal background checks. Checkpoint may be one of the sources or is one of the sources. Residential or tenant history. Tenant data services. Check writing history. Check systems and telecheck. Creditors and debt collectors. Employers and regulated companies such as LexisNexis, Westlaw, ChoicePoint, and eFunds, which is the owner of check systems, all fall under the guidelines of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Now, LexisNexis, for those that may not be aware of it, as far as like public record information, your judgments and bankruptcies, the courts do not, repeat, the courts do not report information to your credit file. Okay, that's all done through LexisNexis, and also any tax liens that you may have are not reported by the IRS or your state. That information is gathered because it's public record, through one of the sources, which could be LexisNexis, and there are a couple of other companies, but LexisNexis is one of the bigger ones, and they report, whatever you see in your public record file when you're looking at your credit report. All right, now how it pertains to collections, okay? You can potentially get $500 per debt collector call, and that falls underneath the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. Now, debt collectors can't threaten you as a method to force you to pay. That falls underneath the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Debt collectors can only call between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. your time zone. That falls under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. You can verbally tell them to stop calling you, and them would mean the debt collectors to stop calling you, especially at work, and request that they only communicate with you via mail or in writing. Okay, that would fall underneath the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. You have the right to dispute part or all of the debt. That falls underneath the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And debt collectors have to have a permissible purpose to pull your credit, and that falls underneath the Fair Credit Reporting Act. All right, let's talk a little bit about charge-offs, okay, and how they end up becoming collections. So this is going to be a quick history of how collections arise. When debts are not paid to original creditors, at some time they write the account off as a bad debt, which is called a charge-off. At this point, the government gives the original creditor tax credits towards the bad debts or their losses. Plus, most major companies are also insured against their losses, therefore helping them recoup most or all of your unpaid debt. At this point, the obligation of the debt is satisfied. To add insult to injury, the original creditor sells the debt to a debt collector for pennies on the dollar, only adding to the pot. Then the collection calls start. Now, we don't advocate not paying your obligations, but if the debt is satisfied, why should you or would you pay a debt collector? Remember, underneath the FDCPA, which is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, you have the right to dispute part or all of the debt. So that's exactly what we do. You should not avoid a debt collector because they can enforce legal action. So how to handle a debt collector call. All right, when you get calls from a debt collector alleging debts, please do not own up to the debt. Keep in mind their calls are recorded, and what you say and will be what you say can and will be used against you. We recommend that you answer your phone. Stop avoiding unavailables, toll-free numbers, unfamiliar numbers. Okay. Tell them that you don't recall a debt. Give them limited personal information and try to avoid giving info, but do what it takes to get what you need from them, which is getting something in writing. Be sure to get the name of the person you're talking to, the company name, and their direct contact number. Make note of the number calling, the time, and the date. And then from this point forward, keep a separate log of each time that particular debt collector and any other debt collectors call you. Keep a separate log for each debt collector that calls you. Ask them to send you something in writing. First off, you may want to do by email. If they don't have your, let's say they don't have your correct address, okay, try by email. If not, prompt them by fax. These guys in the last 5 years have become more high tech than what we actually think. Once upon a time, all they could do was mail you stuff. Okay, now, they can email and they can fax. If those two methods fail, then go ahead and give them your updated address. Or maybe if the old address is at a relative or a family member that you can retrieve mail, just let them go ahead and mail that information there. What's most important is that you get something in writing. And once you get that in writing, make sure that you call me as soon as possible. So we need to dispute this debt as soon as possible so it doesn't turn into a legal action. Now, private right of action basically means, any potential money that you can get for violation of your rights. Now, underneath the TCPA, you can get between $500 and $1,500 per call. Now, the court could be the only one that could determine whether you would get $1,500 per call. Okay, so as far as the debt collector calling you, those calls are $500 a piece. All right. Now, as far as the underneath the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, most of their violations, and we have a list of those violations, will fall generally between $1,000 to $1,500, and that's per violation. And that could also be, but it's per violation. Okay. Now, possibly there are violations underneath the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which may apply to things such as impermissible credit pulls or credit reporting errors, and these could be per credit bureau. In other words, if there are three errors, on each credit reporting agency behind one collection activities, I mean, you can get paid for, from each agency error, not directly from the credit reporting agency, but from the debt collector that's reporting to that agency. The moral of the story is deal with your debt collectors, okay? Because they may pay you, they may owe you money. Couple of our success stories, and this is just a few of the collections that we've been able to eliminate. Um, we've had one for $9,870, $250, $998, $22,506, and that's just to name a few. And I mean, there's just been tons and tons. Some that we haven't even gotten verification from clients on. Okay, but these are the ones that we have gotten verification. Now, as far as like client settlements, I mean, those checks for your private right of action for a debt collector calling you. We've gotten a check for 2,000, one for 3,000, one for 2,500. We've got a couple of cases that are currently being worked on. Some are small, some are big. Okay, one case is for like 9 calls, another one is for 12 calls. We've got one for about 60 calls, and we've got a couple of potential cases that just kind of waiting for the client to gather all the information and then roll into the program. But those calls are like 21 call deal. I got a 43 call, a 59, a 63, and then we've got one for 142 calls. And but most importantly, we've got yours. Okay, so I mean, we're just beginning to warm up as far as this program. We're just getting started with this. Hopefully we'll have your success story and some future presentations and updates to this particular presentation. So I mean, if you've got debt collectors that's calling you, don't hesitate. I mean, there are a lot of major law firms. I've seen about a year ago, there's a major law firm in my area that was promoting one Memorial Weekend. The fact of telephone calls from debt collectors. Okay, so when major law firms are getting in it, that tells you right then and there. And this wasn't a class action. These guys were taking individual cases in. So I mean that tells you something that this is a viable solution here. So don't let this money go past you. Okay. Now, as far as being sued by a debt collector, if you're getting sued, if you've recently been served a lawsuit from a debt collector or their attorney, you need to get with us as soon as possible, because you only have in most states, now this might not apply in your state, you have to look at your paperwork, but most states only give you between 20 and 30 days to answer. And when you answer, there are some steps that need to be taken before you answer, and then that needs to be a proper answer. And if you don't do either, then the debt collector and the attorney are going to win by default. Okay, and that's not where you want to go. Now, just simply defending yourself, okay, and defending yourself properly, you know, most times the odds are in your favor as far as being able to beat these guys in their case. We've had a couple of cases that we've helped some clients on recently, and just conversations, and sharing information with the opposing attorney. They didn't like any of what we said, and they pretty much dropped the case. So that was money that was saved by the debt collector. It wasn't another negative mark that's showing up on the credit report. So I mean that's important. So if you got a debt collector that's just recently served you, do something about it. Don't they're looking for you to be part of the numbers. Okay, part of that 96% that never respond, that never do anything, that it helps the opposing debt collector win by default. Okay, don't be the default. Now, a judgment from a collection. Okay, now this is usually by default. Most times it's by default. Sometimes, you may answer, you may go to court, you may still lose. Okay, but for those that have that have judgments, and when you're looking at your credit report, you don't know exactly how that came about. You're just unfamiliar with that. There's a possibility that with our help that we can get this back in the court and give you a day. Or maybe the judge may consider throwing it out, maybe because you wasn't properly served. It's really going to be determined upon the court and the judge. But I mean, it's possibility. I mean, nothing beats a failure but a try. Now, there are a couple of recommended apps, okay, that if you've got a smartphone that we recommend that that you get. Uh, uh, One is for call logs, and the other one is recording. Now, there's an app called Current Caller ID. I know I've had it on my phone for about 2 years, and which is great because it's a way of being able to prove calls. I mean, sometimes you're not able to return every call, and then the call log that comes with your phone only holds so many calls for so much a time, and then it bumps those out, whereas this will hold it for a lot longer. And this may be the basis of showing you proof if you've got a debt collector that's calling you. Now, as far as the recording apps, I've actually used both of these, and they work great. uh, Currently, the type of phone that I have, the automatic call recorder, I should say the past two phones that I've had has been the recommended um, app. Okay, and I've been using this for about 2.5, 3 years. And so it would do, it'll record phone calls. Okay, you won't be able to do it with your Bluetooth on, okay, but it'll record phone calls, which can definitely be beneficial as far as proof of activities or conversations with a debt collector. auto call recorder. It's a great app. You just need to find out which version of Android you have and which one of these two are available. Other solutions that we have, check systems. You may have seen a recent presentation that we've done on check systems help. But if you're, one of the unfortunate individuals that can't get a bank account or you can't write checks, we can definitely remedy that. If you go back and you look a couple of slides, it shows that check systems and telechecks, they're basically a consumer reporting agency. So I mean, anything that you have on file with those guys can be disputed, and we'd love to show you how to get that done, or you can purchase our do-it-yourself ebook. Now, as far as collections resolution, if you've got recently got a letter from a debt collector and they're alleging that you owe them a debt, you know, let's go ahead and dispute that. Okay, don't pay those guys. Okay, it could potentially be money that you can keep in your pocket. As far as anything with credit correction, if you've got any issues, any blemishes on your credit, would be a great time to go ahead and get started with that as well. We can dispute that information. Um, we don't make any guarantees about being able to remove anything or any time frames, okay, but you really need to dispute anything that's negative on your credit report, okay, because I mean you'll be surprised how much stuff can be taken off simply because it was originally reported on your credit file in error. Okay. Now, as far as identity theft protection, we've got a recent presentation done on it. If you didn't catch it, just touch base with me, and I'll go ahead and I can get that information to you. But why not protect yourself and your family from what's in the U.S. is the number one crime. Okay, but actually, you know numbers and every information that I have says that it's the number one crime in the U.S. and it's at the top of the list with the FTC as far as complaints. To me, it's a worldwide issues because I mean a lot of third world countries are the ones that are actually being able to hack in and get information, and so. I mean, it's just really a worldwide situation. I mean, everybody can be affected by identity theft. I mean, no one, even your kids, are not exempt from that. Okay, so why not, protect them, put a monitoring system in place, that will, seek and search out and make sure that, you guys' identity stays well protected. Judgment, tax liens, IRS resolution. If you've got any issues with the IRS, especially if it's over 10 grand, we could potentially, help you out with, an offer and compromise with that. Any tax liens or judgments on the report, we may be able to go back in on the judgment side and see if we can bring that back before the court. But if it's a situation that's already done, you've been to court on it and just you lost your case and the judgment is against you, the older those things are, the more likely that judgment creditor will be with you to get that settled, and that may be where we can come in and be that catalyst to get that or that negotiator to get that done. And the same thing with tax liens. Okay, we may be able to go ahead and assist you with as far as getting those things settled. Lawsuit relief. We mentioned that if you're getting if you've recently been served by a debt collector or their attorney, defend yourself with that case. Don't be part of the 96% that do nothing. And as far as violation help, if you feel like any of the three consumer laws you're being affected by, you're getting calls from a debt collector, debt collection activity, or just negative information is being reported on your credit file, let's, connect with us. Let's dive in. Let's see what we can do as far as, getting you paid on those scenarios. All right, if you're interested in hiring us, give us a call. Our TCPA transaction, okay, we'll definitely get you some prices on it. We'll get you a good deal and make sure that you're taken care of. But just give us a call. We'll fill you in on all of the details as far as the investment into the program and what's required of you and what's going to be required of us. You can reach us at 404-437-5902. Once again, 404-437-5902. We're available Monday through Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and on Fridays from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. If you just want to, get some information by email, send an email to improvemycredit@ymail.com. Once again, it's improvemycredit at the letter Y mail.com. This is Charles. One of either myself or one of the representatives will get with you. And once again, the topic of this presentation was make debt collectors pay you. Turn the tables on debt collectors. So we'll open up for Q&A at this time, and for those that are looking at this video from one of our sources, there are going to be links as far as how to contact us and website to go to and just information in general. So make sure you check out those links on the page.